Now, I'm not a big fan of core exercises when it comes to calisthenics, but I am a big fan of core skills. So if you take something like a dragon flag and hold the position for time, you go up and down for repetitions, then we've got a great core skill that's also a great core exercise. And I'd recommend you do that with all the calisthenic skills. Work the skills out that you want to train towards as goals and use that as your training, that as your core exercises. Instead of training loads of planks, build your core strength doing the things that you enjoy doing, like the handstands, like the handstand push-ups, like the presses. But if you want to train the dragon flag skill like Bruce Lee, then that's what I'm going to go through today. So let's start with the foundations. What are the things you should be doing to start with, or just at least make sure that you can do before you start adding on the cooler skills or the harder progressions? So first of all, we just want to go into this position. So I'm going to lay on the floor here. I'm going to push my low back into the floor. So my low back is pushed as hard as I can into the floor. I'm then going to extend my legs further away. If that feels okay, I can lift up both legs at the same time, keeping the low back pushed in. Now, if this is too hard, I just need to shorten the lever arm. But ideally, especially if we're going to go into flag variations, I need to be able to go extended legs, low back into the floor, hold this position for time. Ideally, you should be able to hold a conversation like this as well, making sure that low back is still into the floor. Now, this is much harder for females than males, just because of the shape of the pelvis, and that females tend to have a bigger anterior tilt than males to start with. So it's harder to pull the low back into the floor. But ideally, we should be doing 30 to 60 seconds comfortably in this position before we go to some of the harder progressions. And then to train it a bit more dynamically, you could go into more of a V up position or a V sit type position. So I'm here. The harder version would be to straighten the legs there, but there's a lot of flexibility demand there. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to extend the legs and lean back slightly and then bring the knees back in again. So this is a great core exercise, but also a balance exercise because I need to compensate for the legs going out by leaning backwards. Now you can do this with the butt raised up as well, which allows you to take the feet lower than the hips and then come back again. Just watch this one if you're on a narrow step like this because you could end up going backwards. Next, I'm going to use an anchor to hold on to. So I'm grabbing hold of something. I'm going to come into this position where my knees are directly over my hips. Again, I'm going to push the low back into the floor and then I'm just going to lift up and then come back down again. Now, if I can't do that, I'm going to need to use a little bit of momentum, or I'm going to have to bring the knees closer towards my chest. So if I can now close in that position, roll up, it's much easier because the lever arm is coming back towards me. If I want to make it harder, I want to take a lever arm further away, come up, and then back down again. Now, don't think the lever arm is getting longer if you do this. If I do that, the lever arm's not getting longer in that direction, it's going up in the air. So if I do want to extend the legs and make it much harder, I need to go that way on the way up and on the way down. So we can just keep progressing the rolling up and down. Now you notice I've moved over to a fixed bar now, just because I want to add in some holds here. So the hold is going to be coming up, now coming down, and then just holding in that position for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then I come back down again. Making sure I don't arch the back as I come down. Notice I brought the knees back towards me and rolled down with my low back touching the floor first. And then we can just keep progressing that lever arm to get further and further out, with the goal being more up onto your upper back and lengthening from there. So here, and then... Now, I don't know if you saw what happened then. I actually moved this rack. So I've just stuck a few weight plates on there to hold this down. So exactly the same thing. So lifting up onto the upper back shoulders, extend the legs and hold 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then come back out. And then once you've built up some strength and conditioning of the skill with the static version or holding that static anchor, you can start to use something like a kettlebell, weight plate or barbell. Now, something like this is 20 kilos. This actually isn't going to be enough weight to counterbalance my legs. So I can come up into that position, but if I try and extend down, the 20 kilos isn't enough. My legs keep going. So for me, I'm going to have to use a heavier kettlebell, which I don't have at home. I'm going to have to use the barbell. So I'm jumping up to 10 kilos each side on a 20k barbell, so that's 40 kilos. Hardest thing is getting the bar up there in the first place. So just make sure you've got clearance behind you because you could drop it back up in the air. Take the barbell slowly away as you extend up, lean away, and then you have to try and get the balance right. So it's a bit messy. Kettlebells are definitely easier to hold on to and get into that initial position, but then you can play with progressing that and making it harder and harder. The other version you can do is a fixed anchor but using a bench. Now I don't have a bench at home. The bench is much easier because you can grip around the side. With this one I'm going to have to try and find the handle on the end. So my hands are going to be very narrow, but let's see if it works. So from here, up in the air, straight body and lower. And hold, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and come back out. That's super hard. Whoa, that's super hard on those upper traps. Probably more from a mobility point of view, trying to hold back down there. So definitely the bench on the holding on the side is the better option. So I'd play around with those other variations, find out what works best for your gym setup and for your level. I would definitely start off with this fixed anchor though, with those smaller holds. Once you can get into those harder positions, you can then play with going down and back up again, which is very intense, especially when you're talking. So let me know down in the comments if you have any questions with this one. Let me know if you think there's a better core exercise for calisthenics. And I'll speak to you in the next one. Thanks, guys.